By the 2020s, after 10 mostly great seasons of The Simpsons, and over 20 more that range from good to truly terrible, it got to the point where, whenever a viewer tuned in to watch a new episode of the show, there was always a strong chance that they'd walk away disappointed. Then came the 33rd season of the iconic TV series, and, although the season, as a whole, was just as hit and miss as their previous dozen or so seasons had been, there were a number of standout episodes that, though nowhere near as good as the show's golden age, were actually pretty good. There was, of course, the two-part episode, A Serious Flanders, the critically acclaimed homage to the 1996 film Fargo, and its subsequent TV series of the same name, which premiered in April 2014. Then there's the episode The Ways We Were, in which Moe not only finally has some significant personal growth, but also gets a happy ending. Also, there's Boyz N the Highlands, which first aired in March 2022. In the episode, Willie brings Nelson, Dolph, and Bart to Jebediah Hill. The three kids have been sentenced by the juvenile court to complete the Highland Trek for Troubled Truants, a scared straight-style disciplinary course for children who break the law, where troubled kids have to make their way from Jebediah Hill through the Springfield Highlands to Ankle Rock. The group are soon joined by Martin, who says he's volunteered to make the trek out of genuine interest. Willie then leaves the boys to fend for themselves, and the group set off on their own, with only a map to guide their way. However, the boys soon find themselves running for their lives when their weekend in the wilderness takes a dark turn. The episode features a number of cultural references. The very title itself is a reference to the 1991 film Boyz N the Hood, a coming-of-age drama about life in South Central Los Angeles, which is based on the 1987 song of the same name, written by rapper Ice Cube. Most notably, though, is the fact that the episode pays tribute to the little-known 2019 horror comedy Get Juked, otherwise known as Boys in the Woods, which tells the story of a camping trip in the Scottish Highlands that turns into a fight for survival when 4 teens become the target of vicious elitist hunters. Like in the Simpsons episode, the film revolves around 3 delinquents and 1 nerdy character who are forced to go on the trip together. The film received mostly positive reviews from both the public and critics alike. However, given the film's low budget, the fact that it was made by a first-time writer-director, and that it was set in Scotland,
Jobbers called milk, you mucker!
It was always destined to appeal to a very niche market. Still, the film was an immediate cult classic that a member of The Simpsons writing staff happened to stumble upon, which impressed them enough that it subsequently inspired them to write an episode in honor of it, making for one of the best and most layered parodies that The Simpsons has ever produced.
Whoa, you may not be cool, but you're psycho, and that makes you kinda awesome.
After previously directing music video clips for the Chemical Brothers and Mike Snow, Get Juked marked Ninian Dolph's debut as a cinematic writer-director. For this project, Dolph decided to target the self-proclaimed self-improvement endeavor, the Duke of Edinburgh Award, which was founded in 1956 by Prince Philip, based on the belief that young people were rebellious because they lacked key characteristics such as fitness, initiative, imagination, self-discipline, and compassion. In response to the patronizing and elitist origins of the award, Dolph revolved his film around the basic premise of the rich hunting the poor for fun, a scenario which was first seen in the classic 1932 film The Most Dangerous Game, based on Richard Connell's short story of the same name, which was first published in January 1924. In Get Juked, the film sees 4 teenagers sent to the Scottish Highlands to compete for the Duke of Edinburgh Award, which they'll obtain by making a long, dangerous trek to the finish line. 3 of the boys are friends from the city and see the trek as nothing more than a chance to get high. However, to their dismay, they're grouped with another boy, a homeschooled stranger, who actually wants to do the trek. Shortly after the boys set off on their own, the adventure that had initially seemed like it would be nothing more than tedious turns dangerous when they're hunted by elitist locals, the Duke and his wife, the Duchess, who enjoy hunting delinquents in the name of culling the herd for the betterment of society. The boys manage to outrun and outsmart their tormentors, leading to numerous instances of slapstick violence, culminating in a bloodbath in the film's final moments. Much like Edgar Wright, with his Cornetto trilogy of the 2004 film Shaun of the Dead, 2007's Hot Fuzz, and the 2013 feature The World's End, Dolph managed to perfectly blend elements of horror with absurdist comedy, making for a debut feature that is better and deeper than the gimmicky title suggests. Unlike a number of films that started out as fan-favorite midnight festival screenings like Get Juked did, when it premiered at the 2019 South by Southwest Film Festival, the movie was also well-received when it moved to the small screen on Amazon Prime Video in August 2020, thanks largely to Dolph's distinct style and sensibility that keeps the film moving at a steady and engaging pace, with characters that become more and more intricate and likable as the story goes on. Remarkably, the movie, which is primarily a horror, takes its cliched survival of the fittest premise and subverts expectations with a perfect balance of slapstick humor and absurd violence as it trades tension and scares for laughs. Ultimately, while the film is a little clunky, as you'd expect from a first-time director, it's also undeniably endearing, with significantly more depth than you'd expect, much like The Simpsons' tribute to this little-known but much-loved cult classic.
Dolph speaks inside of Kilmarnock.
The episode that aired just a week before Boyz N the Highlands was another well-received episode of the 33rd season, Pixelated and Afraid, in which Homer and Marge find themselves lost in the wilderness, struggling to survive the elements and the predatory dangers of an icy forest. With Boyz N the Highland airing in such close proximity with Pixelated and Afraid, some fans saw Bart's misadventure as little more than a rehash of the previous episode's story, with Homer and Marge switched out for Bart. However, in addition to the stories playing out significantly differently, Boyz N the Highlands is also a clever parody that was so well executed that the episode is accessible for longtime Simpsons fans, casual viewers, and even newcomers, as a viewer doesn't need to be aware of Get Juked or even the iconic Simpsons characters to still enjoy the story. In the episode, the group find a baby goat, which they eventually decide to bring with them. Unbeknownst to the boys, a mysterious satanic cult who were planning on sacrificing the goat follow them. The boys soon splinter into two groups when the goat refuses to get into a canoe they find. Consequently, Nelson and Dolph take the vessel, while Bart and Martin take the goat and head to their destination on foot. Soon, the Satanists capture Nelson and Dolph and tie them to a sacrificial altar, with a swinging axe slowly lowering above it, leaving them to rely on Bart and Martin to save them. Typically, when The Simpsons decide to dedicate an entire story to a parody, it's restricted to just a brief segment crammed within a 3-story non-canon episode. Specifically, given the nature of the story, they could have easily relegated Boyz N the Highlands to a brief Treehouse of Horror segment. After all, when it came to The Simpsons doing a parody of Harry Potter, a literary and cinematic universe that, at the time, consisted of 4 books and a planned series of films, ripe for parody and satire, it was delegated to just an 8-minute Treehouse segment.
Turn into a prince guy?
In contrast, when it came to Get Juked, The Simpsons chose to dig deep into the film and maximize the potential of combining it with the Simpsons universe. Boyz N the Highland was written by Dan Weber, who earlier penned the iconic 8th episode of the 31st season, Thanksgiving of Horror, a nightmarish take on the Thanksgiving stories. Additionally, the episode was directed by Bob Anderson, who is one of the most prolific Simpsons directors, with over 60 episodes to his name. Most notably, he directed the episodes Treehouse of Horror 6, 19, and 21. Both Weber and Anderson's past experience with horror-themed episodes was put to use crafting a distinctly bleak, ominous atmosphere throughout the episode that's arguably more unnerving than the horror movie they're referencing, which Weber paired with character analysis threaded throughout the story, specifically that of Martin.
And I have problems, Bart! Scary problems!
Arguably, the thing that makes Boyz N the Highlands great is the fact that it isn't just a parody. The Weber took the premise to Get Juked, then used it to explore the characters involved, particularly in regards to Martin. Given the core themes of being physically and emotionally lost, the episode is a spiritual sequel of sorts to the previous Simpsons installment, Boy Scouts in the Hood, the 8th episode of the 5th season, when Bart gets lost at sea, which forces Homer and him to reevaluate their relationship and themselves, much like Bart and Martin are forced to do in Boyz N the Highlands. Early in the Simpsons' run, Bart and Martin were frequently paired up for misadventures. In the 2nd episode of the series, Bart the Genius, Bart and Martin's rivalry is on full display when Bart is busted for vandalism after Martin rats him out. Later, in the 19th episode of the 2nd season, Lisa's Substitute, Bart and Martin face off against each other for the role of class president.
More asbestos! More asbestos! More asbestos!
However, as the series went on, Martin became more of a secondary character, who came and went throughout an episode for an easy joke at his expense, jokes that were usually based on him being one of Springfield Elementary's most obnoxious teachers' pets. In contrast, in Boyz N the Highlands, Martin returns as a main character for the episode. During Martin and Bart's trek, the two have an emotional fallout, during which Martin admits that he didn't volunteer for the trek like he had originally claimed. Rather, he's there because he's also being punished after he broke into a pharmacy to steal prescription drugs, as his parents had been driving him too hard to excel at school, and the pressure caused him to snap.
I see 2 therapists! They email each other about me! And I'm on drugs!
Understandably, in doing this, some fans complained that The Simpsons had thrown away decades of character development for Martin with his abrupt revelation and turn in character, much like the show did when they suddenly altered Principal Skinner's backstory in the 2nd episode of the 9th season, The Principal and the Pauper, when it's revealed that he stole someone else's identity after his military service.
I'm an imposter.
However, in Martin's case, the revelation of his personal struggles fits perfectly with the pressures that are often thrust upon gifted children.
Spare me your euphemisms! It's fact
camp for Daddy's chubby little secret.
Something that the episode underscores with Lisa's subplot. Oftentimes, the side story of an episode of The Simpsons can be significantly weaker in comparison to the main plot, in addition to being totally irrelevant to the main story. However, in the case of Boyz N the Highlands, the subplot isn't just strong, but it also ties in perfectly with Martin's arc. Ostensibly, Boyz N the Highlands is about Bart. However, it's the character development of Martin and Lisa that truly makes the episode great, as both the main story and the subplot explore the expectations and difficulties of being a gifted child. While Bart is wandering through the Highlands in the main story, at the Simpsons house, Homer and Marge are in the middle of making plans for their weekend alone, when they are interrupted by Lisa, who informs them that she sent Maggie to Patty and Selma's, because she wants to live out her fantasy of being an only child while Bart's away, with the expectation that her parents will lavish her with attention, as she's always wanted. Homer and Marge oblige, leading to Lisa acting completely out of character, free from the societal expectations of a well-behaved gifted child. Inevitably, having repressed her childish instincts for so long, Lisa goes a bit too far with her only child fantasy, overindulging to the point of making herself sick.
What happened?
You got a little overexcited and barfed yourself to sleep.
Still, she finds the experience cathartic, highlighting the need to let kids be kids, especially gifted ones.
We still have daddy-daughter piggyback ride. Giddy up! Oh.
Like any great parody tribute, when The Simpsons decided to pay homage to Get Juked, they didn't just recreate the film's most recognizable scenes shot for shot. Rather, the show drew inspiration from the film, then contextualized the parts that were relevant into The Simpsons universe. As a result, the homages is noteworthy for the aspects of the films that The Simpsons didn't use just as much as the ones they did. Throughout the film, the boys are repeatedly getting high, something that The Simpsons understandably omitted from their version. Additionally, the movie features a substantial amount of music, specifically rap. Fortunately, there's none to be found in The Simpsons parody. Certainly, the voice actor behind Bart, Nancy Cartwright, can actually rap. Kind of.
My head kept buzzing, gave the radio a throw and heard an explosion.
Still, thankfully, The Simpsons spared us having to witness a woman who is now in her mid-60s rapping.
There's a lot of new ways a guy can make a dollar. I'll ride the money train, make it rain, holla!
Ultimately, the most notable and important difference between the film and The Simpsons episode is the respective endings. In the film, after numerous misadventures while on the run, the boys eventually decide to hunt down the Duke and the Duchess, who they soon corner on a shoreline. With their ostensible last words, the elderly villains justify their actions against modern youth because they feel young people are obnoxious and ungrateful. In response, the boys accuse adults of wrecking the world, leaving young people to clean up their mess. Suddenly, more elderly hunters arrive. The group are just about to execute the boys when a runaway minibus rolls off a cliff and crushes the hunters. In contrast, the Satanists in Boyz N the Highlands are revealed to simply be young filmmakers. On one hand, it was good that the show changed the ending from the films. Had The Simpsons also copied Get Juked's ending, and had the Satanists revealed to be elderly hunters who hate young people, then it would have devolved into a rehash of the ending of the 11th episode of the 10th season, Wild Bart's Can't Be Broken, in which Springfield imposes a curfew for children, prompting them to retaliate against the town's adults.
Adults, they're always telling us to
Traps!
Still, unfortunately, the ending of Boyz N the Highlands is one aspect of the episode that falls flat. Not only does it have nothing to do with the story, but it was also unoriginal and felt lazy, as it was completely unearned and seemed tacked on at the last minute. Having said that, however, you could argue that the twist of the Satanists being nothing more than teenagers is almost redeemed by Nelson and Dolph's one-liners about film students.
My cousin went to film school, and now he walks dogs for a living.
When Boyz N the Highland aired, The Simpsons had been in decline for literally decades, so it's understandable that many people would have gone into the episode with low expectations. However, right from the start, with the atmosphere of the episode echoing that of a Treehouse of Horror special, it was clear that, at the very least, viewers were in for something different. Not necessarily good, but different, as the episode was clearly an experiment of some sort. Fortunately, the risks that the episode took, and the creative decisions that were made, well and truly paid off. Although you wouldn't mistake this for an episode from the golden era of The Simpsons, it definitely is reminiscent of that period, thanks to it being a creative layered parody with solid writing, direction, and performances. Ultimately, the episode revolves around Bart. However, Martin's unexpected story arc steals the show. Prior to the episode, we had only ever been given glimpses of Martin's inner struggles, which, even then, were typically played for laughs, which makes his sudden dark turn all the more impactful, especially when it's juxtaposed with Lisa's out-of-character subplot. Ultimately, not only does Boyz N the Highlands do a great job of paying respect to the film that inspired it, but with its creative risks and thoughtful execution, it also serves as one of the best parodies that The Simpsons has ever produced.